The British, if they fathered a child by a black woman, they had no compunction about selling that child, their own son or daughter, as a slave. The French had a few more scruples about it, so that if you were the offspring of a Frenchman, even though your mother were black, you would be born free. And so Jean de Couleur is French for people of color. These were the free sons and daughters of French men and black slaves, some of whom were men of property and wealth, and who by 1789 numbered 25,000 in Haiti. They owned 1/3 of the plantations and 1/4 of the slaves. Some lived in France, such as Julien Raymond and Vincent Auguet, where they petitioned for greater rights for themselves as French citizens. Next slide. Now here's something that I was surprised to find. The history of Muslims in Haiti. Because most of the slaves were taken from the western part of Africa, as many as 30 or 40% of the slaves in Haiti were actually of Muslim birth. And when they arrived in Haiti, they were forcibly baptized, but yet they managed through the years, through the decades, through the generations, to maintain an Islamic identity. So throughout Haitian history, as you read it, you will come across these Islamic names, such as Ayuba, Tamerlane, Ali, Suleiman, Lamine, Fisiman, Yahya, Fatma, Fatima, and Haida. These are common names in Haitian history. Next slide. Many of the indigenous leaders among the slaves were Muslims. As a matter of fact, the greatest ones among them were the Muslims, and they were known as Marabout. Marabout is an Islamic scholar or cleric, someone who is learned in Arabic and the Quran. And in Haiti, they were not just leaders of Muslims, but of all the slaves. They provided military expertise coupled with spiritual and knowledge of the occult. They became revered as priests, and when you read the history, they are generally referred to as voodoo priests. But in fact, they were nothing of the sort. They were Marabout, Islamic scholars and clerics. And they had a supernatural aura about them of mythological proportions, as you'll soon see. Next slide. Many of the slaves ran away. So there were huge communities of so-called Maroons, and in almost every case, the leadership of the Maroon communities, usually high up in the mountains, away from the cities and the settlements, the heads of these Maroons were Muslims. One named Yahya, also called Guillot, was executed in 1787 for leading a slave revolt. Another by the name of Halalou led an army of thousands in the area of Haiti called Couleur. Next slide. One of the most famous of these Muslim leaders was Francois Macanda. He was the most feared Muslim of his day. And as a runaway slave, he managed to stay at large for 18 years. His name became synonymous with poison. Instead of saying poison, you said Macanda. Because during the years 1755 to 1758, he's credited with killing 6,000 whites. Keep in mind, the total population was 32,000. He killed 6,000 of them. Macanda was from a prominent Muslim family in Guinea and was proficient in Arabic and was a Marabout warrior, able to predict the future and having revelations. He made amulets so that the Grigri are called Macandaos, He was called the prophet by the people and may have been a sharif, which is to say a descendant of Prophet Muhammad. When he was captured, they intended to burn him at the stake, but before they could do that, even though he was heavily guarded in a prison, somehow or other he escaped, although he was closely guarded by 2 guards at the time. He was recaptured, and when they attempted to burn him at the stake collapsed, and they had to try it again. And he said to his followers that before he died, he would turn into a fly and fly away. Next slide. Then there is this brother, Boukman, born in Jamaica. Think about this now. Here's a Muslim Marabout, scholar, proficient in Arabic and the Quran, born a slave in Jamaica. Who taught him Arabic in Jamaica? Where did he get the Quran in Jamaica as a slave? He rose through the ranks of the slaves to become a coachman, and as such, he had the ability to travel from plantation to plantation. Being a very strong, intelligent, charismatic individual, he was able to build up a secret network of slaves. His name, Boukman, comes from the English bookman. Bookman was the term used to refer to those scholars of the Quran in West Africa. They were called men of the book, or as Muslims were referred to as people of the book. And so he became known as Boukman because he either had a physical Quran or he had the Quran memorized in his head. At a so-called voodoo ceremony at Bois, Caiman, which means alligator woods, he launched the Haitian Revolution on the 14th of August, 1791. This slave revolt, actually revolution, in the first month burned 200 sugar estates, 1,800 coffee plantations, and cut the throats of 1,000 slave owners. Boukman was shot, and his head was put on a pole on display in Cape Français. Next slide. Now, this is a portion of the speech that Boukman gave that launched the Haitian Revolution. In Creole, he spoke English, French, Creole, and Arabic. But he gave the speech to the slaves in their speech, which was Creole. Boukman denounced the God of the whites, who asked for crime, whereas the God of the slaves wanted only good. But this God, who is so good, orders you to seek revenge. He will direct our arms. He will assist us. Throw away the image of the God of the whites, who is thirsty for our tears, and listen to freedom, which talks to our hearts. Those are some strong words, aren't they? Next slide. And so at the launch of the Haitian Revolution, there were a number of great leaders that emerged, in addition to the Muslims who are in large order written out of the history. You don't hear about the Muslims who actually made it happen. You hear about Toussaint Louverture. But even in his name, the name Toussaint means all saints, and Louverture means the opening. So it's as though his name was actually Al-Fatiha. He defeated a huge British invading force in 1798. And then he defeated a mulatto general named Rigaud in 1799. And in 1801 defeated the Spanish, who had control of the eastern part of the island. And so he basically united the island as one country. He abolished slavery in both Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And he declared partial independence from France because he continued to trust in the ultimate goodwill of the French. And so they invited him onto a French ship that was in the port for so-called negotiations, and he was taken captive and taken to France, where he was jailed, and he died of pneumonia in a jail cell. Next slide. One of his lieutenants, Jean-Jacques Dessaline, continued to fight in the absence of Toussaint Louverture. And in fact, he was the one that actually defeated the French. He's the one that actually defeated Napoleon's armies. He declared full independence in 1804. And he's the one that adopted the name Haiti from the indigenous name that we showed in the beginning. In his Constitution of 1804, he promised freedom of religion, and he attempted to do away with the caste system based on color, and he declared all Haitians to be black people. And he banned white ownership of any property or land in Haiti, and that constitution is still in effect to this day. Later, he declared himself to be the Emperor Jacques I. He was betrayed and assassinated in 1806. Next slide. Dessaline's Proclamation of 1804. After driving the French out, who fled to Cuba and New Orleans. That's how New Orleans got to be French. And that's also how the United States ended up with the Louisiana Purchase. Because after Dessaline drove the French out of Haiti, then Napoleon said that was the end of their dreams of having a French empire in the Western Hemisphere. And so he was willing to sell the Louisiana Purchase to the United States. But the few French that remained were slaughtered by Dessalines, 2,000 in Cape Francais, 900 in Port-au-Prince, and 400 at Jérémie. He issued a proclamation. We have repaid these cannibals, war for war, crime for crime, outrage for outrage. All praise is due to Allah.